Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan with a hot take, my disheveled hobo looking hot take, thanks to this one waking me up. Waking me up. Anyhow, um, the one press conference I chose to skip turned out to be a good one to talk about. Anyhow, Trump's press conference yesterday, which I did eventually watch. I skipped it because of the live stream, but turned out to be another faux news day. So everybody's talking about how Trump wants you to inject yourself with bleach and run outside in the sun because that'll cure you. It's not what he said. As always, taken completely out of context. Here's what happened. So Trump had an expert on. Guy came out and said, we measure these viruses by their half-life, and that's how they rate them, or rate things that kill the virus. When the virus is at 1,000 units and then goes down to 500 units, how long did that take? So they have determined through testing that bleach obviously kills the virus, something we all suspected, but you have to test these things because every once in a while there's an outlier like the ibuprofen, which we all know, if you haven't heard, the ibuprofen would normally make someone better with the flu, but in this case with the beer virus, it actually makes you worse. So do not take ibuprofen at this time. Tylenol is the way to go. So he was saying that, they confirmed that, yes, bleach is a good disinfectant for the virus. And then he said temperatures of, I believe he said 75, 79, and low humidity on surfaces tends to reduce the virus load on surfaces depending on how porous they are. And then he said in direct sunlight, it really accelerates the process. So now that that's confirmed by science, we know that to be true, although that was true with a lot of viruses, and everybody kind of who followed even basic science kind of already suspected that. That's why they said in the spring and in the summer the infection would be less spreadable. So part of the issue is that if you go into a Wawa and touch the surface of the counter and you're sick, everybody who touches it would be infected. However, if it's the middle of summer and there's sunlight beaming into the Wawa, that virus would quickly evaporate, one would think, and you wouldn't have to worry about it. Or if they wipe the counter down with bleach or some bleach-like product. And I was happy to hear that, just to have it all confirmed. I've been wiping things down with a Clorox derivative, not actual Clorox. You don't want to use, I don't think you want to use just pure bleach. You want to water it down. So then the president was spitballing, and he's like, well, maybe there's a cure in that. Hopefully we could somehow inject light into people, or get the disinfectant into people somehow. Right? That could be a cure, right? And he was looking to get the scientists to jump on board with that. Now, if you know anything about scientists, they're not going to immediately just say, yeah, that's a great idea, we're going to look into it, or yeah, that'll probably work. They want to test things. They don't commit to things until they have all this data. That's part of their deal. So they kind of were like, maybe, kind of, sort of. And of course, you don't want to drink bleach or inject it into your body. But people went bananas, and the reporters were like, oh my God, Trump's saying you should inject yourself with bleach. He's a maniac. That's kind of not what he said. He was suggesting, well, maybe there's a cure in that somehow. And he also said, I'm not a doctor, and all those things. So Trump is using the Captain Kirk view of leadership, right? So like if that was an episode of Star Trek, it would be like, Spock, we have a virus on the ship. We need to find a cure. And then Spock would be like, Captain, our sensors indicate that bleach kills the virus, as well as sunlight, direct sunlight in certain temperatures. Perhaps there, if we use that as a cure. And then Bones would jump in and say, damn it, man, you can't inject a man with bleach, he'll die. And then Kirk would come up with the solution, right? Because they'd be going back and forth, and Kirk would make some suggestion off the top of his head. Well, it's a shame they can't breathe it or something. And then, Spock would come up with a system for vaporizing the bleach, and McCoy would come up with some sort of way to inject it into your lungs that would kill the virus and not kill the patient. So, that's the kind of thing Trump's doing. And he's doing that for two reasons. Number one, he is spitballing like Captain Kirk, hoping that someone's going to shout out the answer or put it all together, because that's what guys do who are in positions of power. They're trying to find the answer, and they're pushing their staff. Come on, think, guys, think. Let's get this going. Let's move. Let's move ahead. What can we do? And then that gets people antsy, and hopefully they blurt out something that someone goes, yes, that could work. Let's test that. Now, it doesn't always work, and it's not always great. And look, Trump has been on a roll. Say what you want about the guy, but the guy's been on a roll. He was right to close down the flights from China, and everybody called him a racist. And then he appears to have been right about the malaria drug. Everybody tried to get him on that, and they're citing this one report that was mildly negative about the malaria drug, but it turns out the testing group were all old, and they didn't use the zinc, and so it wasn't really a good test of that drug, despite the fact there had been dozens and dozens and dozens of other reports saying, oh my God, it cured me, thank God. So, and Trump has also been right about ramping up production of the drugs and the things we need now, even if that stuff isn't all that, effective. So the guy's been on a roll, and really his whole presidency is one big giant roll. I mean, the fact that he won, and again, he just wins and wins and wins and wins. So I wouldn't bet against Trump if I were you, but these reporters are stubborn, and they're anxious to throw themselves on their own swords just to hurt Trump even a little bit. The second reason he's doing it is pretty obvious. If there is a cure found, and it's any way connected to any of the things he spitballed in a press conference, he is going to take credit, or at least partial credit, and he's going to remind everybody, well, I suggested that a couple of weeks ago. And then that clip's going to play in his commercials, even though it won't play on any of the commercials for, any of the reporters reporting on this. It's about selective reporting. So if you watch the press conference, and the biggest reason, the absolute biggest reason why they're focusing on the whole bleach thing is because most of this press conference, Trump excoriated the media, the Democrats, and Joe Biden specifically, and just scorched them. I mean, he absolutely railed on them. He called all the press guys fake news, and really, they are in a large respect. He made fun of the Democrats, said they don't know what they're doing, they're lost, and blah blah blah. But most importantly, he went after Sleepy Joe, called him Sleepy Joe a bunch of times. Said the guy doesn't know where he is. He's doing these press conferences from his basement. I mean, it was bad. I mean, for Joe, not for Trump. So they didn't want to have any of that reported. But they're so stupid to report about the bleach thing and not report the rest, because what do you think happens when you report such an outrageous claim that the President of the United States advised everybody to inject themselves with bleach and run outside in the sunshine and that you'll be cured? It was an outrage and blah, blah, blah. Well, the first thing you're going to do is go, what? That's crazy. Let me go see this press conference. And you do what I did, because I missed the press conference. So I started watching the press conference, and it's the beginning where he has this conversation about the bleach and the sunlight. And you watch it and you go, Well, he doesn't say inject yourself with bleach. He's just making a suggestion to those guys. Well, maybe it's further down the pike. So then you watch the rest of it, waiting for him to circle back to that subject, and he does back off of it a little. He backs off a little bit and says, "Well, that's not what I meant," and blah blah blah, which was weird for Trump. I never heard him do that. That was the closest you'll ever get to an apology. But really, he was just clarifying, and he almost didn't even need to do it because what difference does it make if he clarifies? It's not like any of the reporters reported his clarification later in the press conference. All they did was focus on that. So then he just starts railing on these guys. And they can't do anything other than sit there and not report on it, which is what they did. So, he went off on Sleepy Joe. I mean, it's just going to be a political massacre. He talked about debating Joe. Oh, debate Joe, sure, but this guy, he's sitting in his basement, and he didn't even know where he's at. I mean, this is the kind of guy who, forget it. Biden doesn't stand a chance to debate Trump. It's going to be an absolute S show for the Democrats, and is. And this isn't helping them. Why are you reporting this way? If I was a reporter, I would come in and I would just be very respectful to Trump, regardless of what he said to me, because that's what a professional does. A professional doesn't react emotionally to his subject. When a cop pulls you over, and if you make a face at him or you tell him he's a jerk for giving you a ticket, which I do not recommend, because cops do react emotionally and they can kill you. But there are cops who, and there's video of this all over the internet. Somebody gets pulled over for a speeding ticket and they just tell the cop off. They tell him, "You're an effer for pulling me over. I wasn't going that fast. I hope you die, blah, 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 blah." And the cop just goes, "Have a nice day, sir." And that's exactly what a professional does. A professional does not let his emotions overwhelm him and make him do stupid things. Now, somebody else, and plenty of other cops have done this, will drag that guy out of the car, say, "Oh, you think you're funny? You think you're funny?" And, mess him up. I don't think that's right, and that's unprofessional. This is the same thing with the reporters. They should not get emotional when the president calls them names or does anything crazy or whatever. You should just report it and let other people decide if that was crazy. That you can say that the president certainly shouldn't be spitballing in front of the reporters. But as Sticks and Hammer says, he thinks it's a trap for the reporters because he thinks that Trump probably has either he has some knowledge that they're on the verge of testing something like what he's suggesting already, or he just knows that eventually that's going to be some kind of treatment, right? It's going to be some kind of treatment that you get injected with something. Maybe it's mildly poisonous that kills the virus, or maybe it's some sort of UV device that floods your body. Maybe it's like a tanning bed. You get into the tanning bed and it just floods your body with UV radiation and kills the virus. Maybe Trump should have suggested that, which would have been funny coming from the orange man. So, if I was a reporter, I would just be respectful and just report the news, because eventually I would be seen as a credible guy reporting on a guy who is not credible because he keeps saying all these crazy things. The problem with these reporters is they've lost all credibility. Every time Trump says something that they can twist and turn into a negative, they immediately do. It's immediate. It's like, up. He said inject people with bleach. Inject people with bleach. Oh, I got to write this down. Oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be a headline. President says inject people with bleach. That's clickbait. And in the short term, that gets you clicks. But in the long term, that doesn't get you anything. Because the people who already believe Trump is an idiot, and I just got a call from one, they're not going to be changed. They already think Trump is an idiot and Governor Cuomo should be president because, CNN and MSNBC have now pumped up Cuomo as, oh, he should run for president. He's doing way better than the president. Simply because, they have no one to run in their field, and anybody who even can speak at this point would be better than Joe Biden. But that is not necessarily the case. And it just keeps grinding down the media and ruining their credibility. And there is a poll out that shows that Trump actually has more credibility than the media. Now think on that for a second. Donald J. Trump, the guy who has been known for his blustery rhetoric his entire life, now polls higher than the media in that he polls in any poll, even a Republican poll, which this is. It's mostly a Republican poll. I think it was a Fox News poll. I'm not sure. But it's definitely a right-leaning poll. People who are conservative, contrary to popular belief, liberals, are not stupid. They're not. And I don't include myself in the conservative group because I'm a libertarian. And you could call me a conservative, but I don't consider myself one. But the conservatives are not dumb people. They're not. That is a mistake that Democrats have been on and on and on again. Oh, look at these morons. And that's what the media feeds into because most of them are Democrats. So that's the narrative for them. Oh, these poor, ignorant people with their guns and their Bibles. We have to save them because they're so stupid and racist and ignorant. You know, they just don't know. They're being led by a madman. And that's how you get a bunch of people on Twitter, you know, saying, oh, I'm glad these people are protesting. It'll thin the herd. But the reporters actually believe this. They have Trump derangement syndrome, and they think they're doing everyone a favor because you're just poor and ignorant, and you just don't understand what the president's doing. He talks too fast for you when we're so much smarter, and we're going to tell you how to think. But they do this knowing that they're misleading people, knowing that they're spinning it a certain way. But a lot of them actually believe that spin. And certainly everybody downstream for those left-leaning outlets believe the spin. You could see it by how the celebrities react, how other news people and political people react. They watch the news and they believe it, but they're believing it less and less. And this poll shows it. And another poll shows quite clearly that conservatives have a mix of views in their news viewing habits, and liberals do not anymore. And that's partly because the news is so skewed towards liberals, and it's easy to be in a liberal bubble, but it's hard to be in a conservative one because there's not enough conservative outlets to just get your news from there. There's always some liberal outlet that you're going to have to watch regardless. So the conservatives actually have a better worldview than most liberals at this point in history. Now, that hasn't always been the case, but at this point in history, that is absolutely the case. And that is why Trump polls higher than the media. And this press conference is yet more evidence that Trump, one of the biggest liars on 2 feet, is still more credible than places like CNN or MSNBC. It's crazy. It's crazy. We live in crazy times. But that's 2020 for you. So anyhow, don't believe the hype. We'll see you next time.